Hello everyone, today we are going to continue implementing our chat and our web IP. In this video we are going to finish our web IP fully. Now we are going to implement ThreadService, and then we are going to implement endpoints for authentication and threads, as well as implementing dependency injection and adding Swagger to our web IP. Okay, let's start with creating new folder in the details, threads. In this folder we're going to create two classes, create thread detailer and get thread detailer. Additionally, we're going to implement an expansion that's going to allow us to map our threads to get thread. Okay, so create thread detailer. We are going to do record here instead of class, and it's going to contain two different fields. We're going to just have public required greet it user ID, get just here is init, not set, and then we are going to create string name. So basically, to create a thread we just need its name and user who creates it. Now let's continue by creating get thread detailer. In get thread detailer we also need just two fields: is the ID of our thread and name of the thread. We don't need to return all messages here, because when we're going to log in our chat in frontend and going to request all threads that our user have, we don't want to get all threads with all messages, because this way is going to be really heavy on like calculations and also heavy on memory, pulling all the messages with all threads. So we're just going to create get thread detailer with name of our thread, and also we're going to have here its ID and also name, string name init, and here we also put required. And after that, when our user going to enter thread, we are going to request all messages for this thread. We're going to display it this way, and then we're going to display them in the thread. And this way is going to be more easier on performance, and it's going to perform better because we don't need to know all the messages for threads. At first, it's not going to be really much of a difference because we're not going to have a lot of threads and a lot of messages with them. But when our user is going to continue using our app in long distance, is going to be really noticeable. So this way, that's why we're not going to add history from our get thread detailer. Now, let's create thread mapping extension. It's the same class that we created before for other types. It's just going to have on says. It's just going to have one method which is going to allow us to convert our thread entity to get thread detailer. To get and here we're just going to return new get thread detailer. 1 second. It must use using thread from thread and not extension. Okay. This way it's fine, thread name. Okay. Now let's go to our services and start implementing our thread service. This is going to allow us to interact with thread services, like with threads, where it's going to be the biggest servers that we created in this app, because it's pretty much going to handle all the interactions with our LLM and our user, except for our service. So we create thread service. Then we're going to create thread service. Thread service. This is going to be an interface. Let's start. Delete everything that we don't need. Public thread service, and then we're going to implement the following. So we're going to define the following things. First of all, we need to create thread async, create thread async, which is going to accept two things. You're going to create thread data, and it's also going to thread data. It's also going to accept cancellation token as usual. Okay, next we are going to write task delete thread async, and it's going to accept cancellation token as well. Yeah, just here it doesn't need to return anything, so we're going to return just the task. Next, public task get thread data async. So what this method going to do is just going to return as thread as data. We're going to have similar method is going to return as thread as entity. Get thread Okay. After this, we need to create other method going to call it add message to thread async. So this is going to be a quite complicated method. It's going to return a total type, which is going to have thread history, collection, yeah, we need to define here using thread history message. So basically it's going to return the thread to which this message belongs to, is going to return history, basically all messages in the thread, and also going to return message. of user message. We need to do this because we're going to save the image first. So we're going to save our message in database first, and then we're going to send it to the gRPC server. So in order to have it easier, we need to return this complicated type, because to get everything that we need to send this message to the gRPC server. So message to thread async. And it's going to accept the following parameters: thread ID, the ID of thread to which we are going to add this message over, create thread detail, create message. I forgot to create message details. We need to do it right now as well. Messages. Okay, let's start. We need to create two classes in messages for messages. Create message detail and also get message detail. And we also need to create extension mapping class, as we did for threads and users in image attachment. So public required new user ID init. So what first is going to have user ID. The ID is who creates the message, obviously. Next, we are going to have our text of the message, string. Additionally, we need false as well, but for false we don't actually false are going to be required, because sometimes there are false and sometimes they are not. Our message is going to be pretty much, so our message can be sent by our user and can be as well sent by our LM. So when message is sent by our user, there are no faults at all. But when sent by LM, there might be faults there. So we need to have faults set by default as an empty string. We actually can just create string empty here. Let's check. I'm just going to check what we have here. We have here as an empty string, so we're also going to have here as an empty string then. No problem. And no, it's better to have it like this, just in case there's going to be any problem with the trans mapping from our message entity to our create message detail. Okay, now continue. We need to have row who sends this message. Row can be either user or assistant, which is our LM or system, or undefined as well. I return list. We are going to return create message, create image attachment detail. Image attachment detail init. Okay, and these basic all our messages that are attached to the message that we are going to create. Okay. So next, we are going to go and create get message detail. text get init. We're basically just copying all the fields that we've done before. Here get init, and by default it's empty. We're also creating required roles. And here we just create this public required iCollection get image attachment init. Here we can pretty much as well just get return. This actually matter much what we're going to put here, because it's going to be pretty much the same performance. So okay, now let's create the mapping class. Message mapping extension public. So it's going to be static class as usual, and here we're going to define two methods. Both of them are going to be static method yeah, but instead of using a message from our chat namespace, we need to use a message. From the entity namespace. Okay, here now we need to return basically new message, new get message URL. So we convert message entity to get message URL here. And then we just need to directly map everything. Except for here. Here we just create list get. Yeah, so here we just need to get image. Yeah, here we're just going to create get image attachment list, and after this we're going to add image attachments to this. Okay. Oh wait a second, we don't really need to do this, because I'm going to do image attachment to get the list. Yeah. So basically we're going to do lazy loading, so we can do this without any problem. And therefore we're not going to hatch or our message with all image attachment attached to it. It's going to be done automatically by our entity framework. So therefore we can just do this here and save ourselves a little bit of headache in future for that message files. So, and here we basically just map all field to corresponding field in our get message. Okay, and we're going to create method is going to do the same, but it's just going to convert all messages to get messages. Get message to get the list this iCollection messages. So we're just going to convert the whole list of message to list of get messages using our function that we just wrote here. So here message to get the TO to list. Okay, now we can return to our thread message, thread service. It's going to accept create message .to cancellation token. Okay. I collection get thread. So now we're just going to define other function. Define other methods. This method is going to be get all threads for user. That's for user. And next is going to be get all messages for a specific thread ordered by time by created. So we're just going to add I collection get thread.to get all messages for thread ordered by created at. It's going to accept ID of our thread and it's going to accept cancellation token as parameters as usual. Okay, and the last thing that we need to do is to create a function going to check if the we need to add async here. Yeah, async because, and we also need to get add async here. Async. It's genuine naming convention that if your method is async, you need to add async there, or if its function is async. So it's good to follow it. Okay, now let's do borrow. Check if the thread belongs to user. Oh, yeah. Okay, and now we're going to greet thread ID and our user ID, and as well cancellation token. Okay, now we can go and starting implementing our service. Okay, thread так, ThreadService. Okay, it's kind of messy here. Get create. Yeah, we just need to say that we're going to using thread. We mean our thread, entity framework thread, Okay, it's going to contain two private fields. First of all, it's going to be read-only app db context, and going to be called _db private read-only image attachment service image attachment service. Now we go service db image attachment service. Okay. So what's going to have two fields: our app db context, which going to allow us to interact with our database, as you know, and our image attachment service going to allow us to interact with image attachments in our database. So it's important to have these two fields here, and they're going to allow us to pretty much finish everything, pretty much do everything with our thread and messages that we need. Okay, let's start implementing the most important method here, which is going to add message to our thread. So what first of all we need to do, we actually need to get our thread db threads get first or default async, which is going to have tid thread id and going to be cancellation token. After that, if thread is null, then we're going to throw an exception in the interpolation. Operation exception is going to say that thread with such ID doesn't exist. Thread with this ID doesn't exist. Thread ID. Thread. Wait before first order. So ID equals create user detail, user ID, and cancellation token. If user is now, oh, the user doesn't exist. With operation, user with this ID doesn't exist. Create message to user ID. Okay, now we're going to access history of our thread. Wow, history is going to be thread messages ordered by create add to list. And now we are going to go and create new message. It's going to have our, which we're going to translate from our create message detail. Okay. Create message detail is going to assign all fields from our message detail to our from our create message to our actual message is going to be thread. And yes, pretty much everything that we need here. Okay, after this we need to go for each image attachment in our create message to image attachments.to. Create image attachments. Create message image attachments. Image attachments.to. You can just call them image attachment here as an image attachment.to. All laundry matters, so image attachment, just attachments. Okay. Attachments. Okay. Wow, image. Image attached service, we're just going to go and create. Now, after this, we're going to add it to message. Image attachments add. Then we're going to go and db one sec. Oh, I also misspelled. Yeah, message must be capital, start with capital letter. So message add message async. Then we're going to await save changes async. Then we're going to return it. Return thread history and message. So basically what we do here, we just save our message, convert our message from create message.to and save it. That's basically everything what we do here. Okay, let's continue. Now let's implement create thread async method. Well, user. First of all, we need to check if the user exists. Here ID equals create and we are going to create if user is now. We are going to throw new invalid operation exception. User with this ID doesn't user with this ID create thread at all. User ID doesn't exist. Okay, now let's create thread. It's going to have a new thread and just the name and the user who created the thread. Then create thread and user sync thread. Change async return read thread async. Now let's implement the read thread async. It's really easy. We just write return db threads while t equals tid equal thread id execute delete async. Okay. So we're basically just deleting the thread that has this ID. Okay, now let's check. Let's now check if the user belongs to. So this method, we're just going to check if the user belongs to thread with this ID, or if the thread with this ID belongs to the user. So to do this, we need to check thread any async. T equals the ID equals thread ID and t user equals user ID. Now yeah, so it's everything, basically, and cancellation token as well. Basically just checking if any thread and user in any thread has the same ID as this, and if it's any user has the same ID. So yeah, if thread has ID and if user to whom the thread belongs has this ID. So, and that's what we check it. Okay, now get threaded to let's implement this method. First of all, we need to do just get the thread. If thread is null, so we just need to throw another exception. Exception invalid operation exception. thread with this ID doesn't exist. ID. And now we just need to return new get thread, which we have ID and name. Okay. Now let's implement the three other methods, threads. So here we need to do, we just need to hatch off, here we just need to go and yeah. So first of all, we just need to fetch all messages that belong to them thread. Yeah, just first we need to check if the thread exists. Await db thread first or default async. Threads should have this at ID, thread ID cancellation token. Okay, if the thread is null, we are going to throw an await operation exception. Thread with this ID doesn't exist. And then we are going to just return thread messages ordered by create at, and we're going to convert all of the messages. Oh no, here we just need to, here I made another mistake, we need to have get message 0 here. Get. Here we're just going to go select all messages to get the to list and here we go to list. Okay, so what we did here, we just ordered all messages by create add, and then we converted all of them to get the FP, and then we converted them to list. So basically we converted all messages in this thread to get the to message. Okay, now I'll get a first result. So here it's also a pretty easy thing to do. We just go await db. And now first we need to check if the user exists. Var user arrays first of default id user exists. If user ID doesn't exist, await operation user if this ID doesn't exist. Tuk. Yes, so here we just check if the user exists, and then we found all threads that belong to the user, converted them to the list. Converted all of them to get_rows and converted them to the list. Okay, and now the last method, just get first of default async await t equals t id equals id conservation token. If now we just need to throw new invalid operation exception thread with this ID doesn't exist. Okay. Next, we are going to start to implement our endpoints. So, okay, we finished our ThreadService, but unfortunately this video is going to take too long if I going to try to implement endpoints and other stuff today. Therefore, I'm going to finish it right here, and in the next video we're going to implement our endpoints and going to implement injections and everything that we need to do to finish our web API.